What's up, everybody? I'm Trip Morgan. This is Billy Harless here to discuss with you today what I was worried would happen, and everybody jumped on me in the preview about happening. The Panthers fell to division opponent, the Atlanta Falcons, today, heading into the playoffs, and some other things happened that didn't go the way everybody had hoped they would go. Moving into the playoffs, Rivera talked about momentum. We're going to get into all that and more. Y'all go ahead and be sure to follow us here on Facebook. Subscribe if you hadn't already. If you follow us, you get all the notifications and stuff. You'll know when we go live, do weekly game previews, when we do our post-game show. We put all that up there. And if you can't, and you're a YouTube person, jump on over to YouTube right here, as simple as it is, and subscribe to us there. We post it all there right afterwards, so it's easy to follow. But right now, we're going to get into this show. Let's go. So what's up, guys? You know, Billy, in the preview this week, I kind of said, look, I was worried with the Bird injury that this offense might take at least a week, and that's really all they were going to have, in realistic possibilities. All they would have is a week to get this offense going back without a true deep threat like, we had with Curtis Samuel and Demir Bird and those kind of receivers. And it worried me. And going into this, Atlanta had to win to get into the playoffs. That was it. They were at home playing on their own turf, and I was like, I just don't see Carolina going in there with a deep threat missing. I felt like Atlanta's defense was good enough to stop, Carolina's run game and ultimately not allow the deep plays. And that's basically what happened. But the worst part of all this was the Saints ended up losing to Tampa Bay, and this is about, if you're a Panthers fan, this is about exactly what would happen. The Saints lose to Tampa Bay at Tampa. Carolina could beat the Falcons, clinch the NFC South, and have a home playoff game. Instead, one of the best case scenarios that I was hoping for was the Saints beat Tampa Bay, Carolina loses to the Falcons, Seattle's out, and Carolina travels to L.A., who was resting their starters, and you get a less experienced team and not the home field advantage that New Orleans has on the road. But since New Orleans lost and Carolina lost, Carolina now has to travel to damn New Orleans to play the Saints. That's not going to be easy, guys. And especially with the way the offense played today.
Yeah, definitely. Today made me it's shame to pull for what we put on the field today, and it was awful. And there were some things that happened at the beginning of the game that I don't know if it got the team off mentally when it came to the officiating of the game, because we don't want to blame the officiating, but there were some bad calls
early on. Yes, it set a tone.
On third downs,
Yep.
It set a tone that got us off of everything we needed to do, and no one was on the same page after that. I said in the pregame that I wasn't worried about the Saints because 3 times is going to be hard. After what I saw today,
Yep.
I think I would say if we put what we put out today, next week will be the end of the season.
Yeah, and the thing I was saying was, kind of towards you saying you're not, it's going to be hard for the Saints to beat a division team 3 times in a row, and I agreed with that sentiment. But my thing was what the Saints had did to the Panthers, and now with the Panthers' injuries, with their speed at receiver, it was going to be tough, not just to beat the Falcons. It was going to be tough going into the NFC playoffs as a whole altogether. It wasn't going to be easy. And I see some of y'all jumping in already. Antonio Carrell saying, no Stu, no Frazier to see what he could do. Yes, and that's true. Look, Stu was out last minute, and he's apparently in some severe pain, according to some Panthers reporters. Stu was in severe pain this morning, back tightness. Not sure what happened there, but I'm here to tell you right now, Jonathan Stewart was not the difference in this game. If there was a difference, it was Demir Bird not being there, or even, long shot now, but obviously it was Curtis Samuel, potentially. But I really think that deep threat, it's clear it has an effect down the field. It was what I worried about when we had Kelvin Benjamin with the run game and everything is what I worried about going into this week, especially the first week without those guys. And really maybe the most disturbing thing was Cam Newton's communication with Greg Olsen today. It was absolutely terrible on both ends.
Cam was back to the beginning of the year shoulder injury rust. The overthrows, the communication with him and Greg Olsen, they've been playing together for years. It was like this was their first time on the field together, and there was frustration from both sides, and it never got solved. There was a point when they showed the sidelines, and they weren't even talking to each other. They didn't even look at each other. That's got to be fixed. Cam also, some of the reads he made today with the running game. Yeah. I don't know how they prepared for this week, if they just went with the generic game plan and didn't really care to win or lose.
Yep.
And the players didn't play with a chip on their shoulder, and it showed. And it's next week, if we put what we did today out, it's going to be our last week, like I said.
Yeah, and look, y'all notice we don't have our little I don't have the offensive recap, our defensive recap, and all this stuff on the screen today, and that's because it was a 4:30 kickoff. We're jumping right into this thing because otherwise it would be 10 o'clock before we got up here. We normally have our highlights to roll and show you examples. The later games kind of put that on hold for us, because that's a lot of editing and stuff we got to do on our part. But in reality, there's really no highlights to show but Atlanta Falcons. And you were talking about the Greg Olsen thing, and just the other part outside of the receiving injuries was the defense going into this game the last month. After the first 8 games, we talked about in the preview, they had allowed 264 total yards allowed per game on average throughout the first 8 games. In the last 7, they've allowed 370 total yards per game. And if you follow us on Twitter, it's at Panther Source. There's no spaces or anything, just at Panther Source on Twitter. That's I've said it enough. That's where I'm at, tweeting during the game, interacting with everybody. Carolina's defense has gotten terribly, progressively worse against the pass with the blitz scheme that they run, and it's downright scary to this point.
Yeah.
They didn't do a terrible job on Julio Jones today. It was when they let Julio Jones get wide open on his look. A staple part of Julio Jones and Matt Ryan's, connection is a deep crossing route or any type of crossing route for Julio Jones. And on third down, it was wide open multiple times today. And I can't tell you, it's so frustrating watching it happen over and over again. And the defense was more so a big worry to me going into this game, even more than the offense with the injuries and whatnot. And honestly, I'm not even going to lie. A lot of people on Twitter I was getting into today were talking about Mike Shula and his game planning and his offensive play calling today. Mike Shula has no talent for Cam Newton to throw to. And I don't want to hear about his play calling when he has no receivers outside of Devin Funchess and Greg Olsen that are legitimate. Christian McCaffrey wasn't involved in the receiving game today. Say what you want, it wasn't happening. And when he was dropping wide open damn passes, and it was ridiculous. The receiving options aren't there for Cam Newton. And he had no excuses for Cam today. He had an absolutely terrible game. And that didn't help anything. The miscommunication wasn't there, but this defense, if you're asking me who should come back between defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator next season, take Steve Wilks before you take Mike Shula, in my opinion. I almost hope Dave Gettleman takes him. James Bradbury and Darryl Worley have both taken major steps back in a man coverage scheme versus the zone coverage that Sean McDermott had in past years. And I think it's clear at this point. The blitzing, when it hits, it's great.
Yep.
What's been the defensive saving grace this last month, and we've talked about it every week, has been turnovers. And the turnovers, if they're not there, this defense is getting shredded. And it cost us today. This offense has averaged 29 points a game the last 7 weeks, or 8 weeks, excuse me. It had 10 today. And that's obviously because of playmakers aren't there. But the defense, look, they just can't stop anybody with this scheme right now, and it worries me going into the playoffs. I think Troy Aikman actually said a stat today in the broadcast that the Panthers' defense has given up more yards the last 3 weeks than any team in the NFL. But they're in the top 10 defensively for past weeks in the first 8 weeks of the season. I mean, I think it's clear.
Yeah, and today they gave 377 up total yards. And that's 317 through the air. I mean, we pretty much stopped the run game. It was 60 yards, but we got shredded, and it was always on third down. We never could get off the field.
Yep. And I'm seeing y'all roll in with the comments. Keep them coming, guys. I appreciate that a lot. We're gonna hit those a little bit right now. I know I just had to vent a little bit, but I think a lot of y'all would probably tend to agree on some of those bases. I'm trying to catch up here. Dante Amos, 1 Cam, 2 Shula, 3 secondary. Cam, yes, he had an awful day. Shula has nothing to do with a drop toss fumble to Cameron Artis-Payne, missed passes by Cam, and a couple more dropped by CMC.
Yeah. That's
not on Shula. And I'm sorry, if you want to sit here and blame Shula, you go ahead and do that. You sleep with that at night. That's not what I'm going to blame when he's got Brenton Burst and Kalen Clay. Kalen Clay is a terrible receiver, guys. I've said I've been worried about it. I said it this week during the preview because Bird had been back and taken over that role. I said it during the preview this week that Clay his hands have been questionable, and he proved that again today. He's not a replacement for Demir Bird or Curtis Samuel. And then you said 3 was the secondary. Yes, absolutely terrible. Missed tackles again by Jarris Bird in open field. Bad. Rivera talked about keeping the starters in this week, and I agreed with it because of the way they played against Tampa Bay and trying to get some type of rhythm back on both sides of the ball going into the playoffs. This is not what we were talking about, and this is the worst case scenario that could have played out for them going into the playoffs, going to New Orleans.
Yeah, going to the Dome where New Orleans plays fast. We couldn't get anything in the Dome done today, and I thought that the third time would be a charm, but after today, no. And he said 4 is the refs, and I think that got the Panthers out of their mental game early
Yes.
on the first drive. That the pick play on Thomas Davis was huge.
Yep.
That should have been called back. Pass interference over the middle was huge, never called. I mean, they had a stat for those refs that they're the number 1 team in the NFL for calls that should have been called that haven't been called. And that's awful.
Yeah.
Like, why are they not being reprimanded for big calls that they're just not wanting to throw a flag on? They're not wanting to make a decision on. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Some of the times when they were spotting the balls on both sides, you'd see both refs run and they'd be a yard apart and be like, oh, well, which one are we going to put it on?
Yep.
And it's going to be a 4th down. It's going to be a first down. The officiating today was awful. And I'm not going to blame it 100% on the officiating, but I think the officiating at the beginning got us off of our game.
You can't blame it 100% on the officiating, but I agree to the point that early on it set a early tone when on key parts, like it was always a third down. The helmet to helmet hit on Greg Olsen, the ref was 5 yards away, nothing called. The pick play with Thomas Davis, you could argue maybe it was small contact, but it was contact before the pass was caught. That's a pick. And then what was the other one? I can't remember.
There's a holding before the ball got to one of our receivers in the middle that wasn't called. I mean, he was draped all over him.
Yeah. Well, that was going on the whole game,
but the thing is that play was so easy to see that it was Hooper that created that pick play. If he just runs his route, it's good.
Yeah.
But when you see him throw a shoulder and make that contact, that's automatic flag. And I don't understand.
Yeah. And look, guys, this for me tonight, this show is brought to you by Sierra Nevada Torpedo Extra IPA, and later it might be brought to you by Jim Beam Bourbon, because that's my thoughts. We were live earlier this week talking about the preview, and I said that a lot of us are talking about, look, no, Carolina's getting the 2 seed. Everybody's going to lose. Everything's going to work out fine. Carolina's going to win. We're going to get the 2 seed in the bye home playoff game. And I was like, I hope y'all are right. But if that happens, I'll wear a onesie today. Well, the worst case scenario in the long run has panned out, and that's really what's got me infuriated the most. I wasn't terribly worried. Like, the fact that I picked Carolina to lose this game isn't what bothered me. It was the fact that the Saints lost to Tampa Bay. So now they're going to be pissed off going into their first round playoff game at home in New Orleans, an intimidating dome, a division rival that knows us better than anybody, has already stomped us twice this season, and maybe it pisses us off. Look, I hope so. I'm just saying our offensive weapons on paper and what we've seen with them, outside of that Brenton Burson 3rd and 24 catch, we're in trouble.
And like I said while we were watching the game, I said we've played well after a loss all season, but we don't have the tools that we've had.
Exactly.
I don't. Something needs. I don't know what needs to be done. Execution was bad today. I don't think you can't blame Shula on that list. Doesn't even need to be on the list. I don't think the play calling was bad. I liked when we went for it on fourth down. Finally.
Look, and I see Jeremiah saying my guy's high as hell, but I agree with what he's saying. If you're talking about me, my eyes are always red, but I have been drinking today, and I'm gonna be drinking a lot more after watching this game.
Yeah.
Right side of the O-line looked lost. Yeah, that's Darrell Williams. He didn't have a lot. Look, and that was something else, and I talked about the run game with the deep threat, and early on the run game was working, which is why I was so shocked we were going pass on a lot of these situations, and particularly on first down. A lot of fans have thought that we run the ball a lot the majority of the time on first down because Mike Shula is so predictable, which is false. Mike Shula passes the ball on first down percentage-wise more than he runs on first down. Today, he could have flip-flopped that because I felt like early on that 10-minute drive and that other drive when we were driving, the jumbo packages were working great. Cameron Artis-Payne was going, and it seemed like after Payne dropped that easy toss that he should have had, but let's blame Mike Shula because he dropped that and cost us 5 yards and a loss to put us in a passing situation. But Payne drops that, and all of a sudden it feels like, hey, you got to pass the ball now. And ultimately, we ended up punting that drive. Yep. Came back the next drive, had 10-minute drive, touchdown to tie the game at halftime. It was great, and you're like, whew, there's a chance. And we had some help on that drive. There was a defensive penalty or two that kept that drive alive. But going into the second half, you're like, okay, maybe. And no, they went right back to passing the ball. Cam was under duress today. I'm not going to lie about that. But he also had times, and he just missed open receivers. There was miscommunication between him and Greg. If that's on Cam or Greg, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. The play wasn't there. It didn't happen. And going into the playoffs, I hope they can get it right. And I would have more faith about them I have faith that Cam and Greg will get it right. I don't have faith that Cam and Kalen Clay can get it right. Cam, yes. Kalen Clay, no. Cam, yes. Russell Shepard, he's been in this league a couple of years. Yeah. He's played with guys like Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry at LSU, but he hasn't shown me anything to say he can get it right going into the playoffs. You're going against a team in New Orleans who has Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram. Oh, and don't let me forget the guy who heads the whole thing up, Drew Brees, at home in New Orleans, who has already whooped us twice. Yes, I'm worried. And if you're not, I would say that's pretty biased. But look, I hope we can get it together. We're going to run through a couple of these stats, and then I'm going to jump to y'all's comments as I see y'all rolling through with them. Keep them coming. And, yes, I'm firing some hot takes right now, but, I mean, am I wrong?
I don't.
Like, when I get hot, I get heated during games, and you're probably seeing the worst I've been all season. Billy's normally one that tries to calm me down because he's the calmer of us two. But I don't think Billy would disagree with a lot of the things dishing out right now.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, this was not a football team that was on the field today. Like, to me, there was nothing working together. A and B never connected. Nothing connected.
Yep.
Everything was wrong. Handoffs were bad. Pitches were bad. Throws were bad. On the sideline, Cam did take a leadership role at the beginning of the game and said, somebody make a play. Cool. He did that. We came out, we scored a touchdown. Later on in the game, back to the blame game. Something happens, they stare at each other, mouth off a little bit, and then they're on the sideline not talking to each other like it should be. I don't know what it is, if it's a distraction from all the other junk that's going on with the team. Internally, I don't know. This team, it looks like the Browns today. Just saying.
Oh, I ain't going to go that far.
I will go that far.
It was bad.
It was bad.
It was bad. And the worst part is this isn't even like I would rather face the Falcons in the playoffs than the Saints. Like I said it going into this game that I felt like the Saints are potentially the best, and they just lost to the Bucs, so that might shoot me down a little bit. But the Bucs have been tight. They played us well. They played Atlanta well, and they played somebody else well 2 weeks before us, along with Atlanta.
I mean, most of their losses are 3 points.
Yeah.
Like 3 to 4 points. So they're not. Atlanta, I mean, Tampa Bay is not bad.
Right.
After watching them last week, because I think they were horrible until last week. It's like, they're actually not that bad. They're almost there. Almost. Yep. They just got to get over the top and start to get those wins. But I don't know what to say anymore.
Yeah, this is really rough. I'm rolling in through y'all's comments, and y'all keep them coming. I'm gonna try to get to all of them. Y'all keeping them coming so fast. It's scrolling as I start to read them. Way too much, Mike Shrew. Way too much blitzing with no results. Hey, look, that's part of the thing with man coverage. That's what I was talking about, and I've talked about with Bradbury taking a step back this year. Man coverage, the ball hawking, it takes everything away. Your back's to the quarterback. You're watching your man. That's obviously why it's called man coverage. But the blitzing on top of it, if the blitz doesn't get home immediately within 2 seconds, and you're leaving a guy like Matt Ryan or Drew Brees or elite quarterbacks in this league, they're going to hit that quick guy wherever that. If Munderland's blitzing off the right side from the slot, and there's a tight end and 13 personnel right there, you best believe they know that guy just needs to run a quick slant or just a quick hitch, and Matt Ryan's going to dump the ball off. It might be 5, 6, 7 yards, and sometimes a lot of times on a slant it goes for 15 to 20. But if that happens, it makes second and short, third and short. It puts you in running down situations, and it's cost Carolina time.
They had at one point, I think it ended up being 18 plays over 10 plus yards today, and I think we only got one sack, and there wasn't a lot of pressure. Matt Ryan didn't have pressure today at all. And that was, it really amazed me because they've been in that slump after the Super Bowl loss, and I thought we would have done a lot better against their offensive line. Yeah,
and look, I saw somebody saying Burson is trash. Look, that was a hell of a route he ran, and we both said this about Burson. He's not nearly as bad as everybody makes him out to be, but by no means have we ever said that he's a great receiver. I think he's a solid possession receiver, and that 3rd and 24 route that he ran with the hesitation was a perfect example, in my opinion. But no, he's not ideal when you've lost Curtis Samuel and Damiere Byrd, but neither is Russell Shepard or Kalen Clay, for that matter. I would almost have Brenton Burson out there over Kalen Clay at this point because Kalen Clay can't catch a damn pass to save his damn life.
Yeah, like I said, Burson, he runs clean routes, and when he needs to catch the ball, he does. He's not. Everybody hates on him because of the muff punt. 2 years ago? He runs the routes he needs to run. He catches the ball when it comes to him. He's reliable. Of course, he's been cut 5 times, but he's there when we need him. Hopefully, whatever's wrong with Frazier, we figure out because he was scratched late today.
Yeah, and I saw and I'm glad you brought it up because I saw somebody comment. That was one of the things that I just wanted to get to. There was no reasoning behind. That was originally released anyway, maybe post-game in the presser or whatnot. There was no original reason why Mose Frazier wasn't active. I would assume it was a numbers game between that and another position because at receiver already you have Devin Funchess, Brenton Burson, Kalen Clay, and Russell Shepard. That's 4. Now, last week they kept 5 for that injury thing, and we all thought Mose Frazier would get in, maybe get some looks. It didn't happen today. I don't know what happened there. I'm not going to sit here and say it makes a difference.
Well, I guess with Jonathan Stewart having the late scratch also, then he needed to run it back because
Cameron Artis-Payne has been out too.
Yeah, and Armo's back today. Right, yeah. So it must have been just we wanted more depth at running back.
It turns into a numbers game there at some points. And I saw, I think it was Chris Jones, commented saying the secondary, the slants go for 15 to 20 yards or more because the secondary missing tackles. Yes, that's right. But a lot of these slants, too, they come off when the guy blitzes, like I was talking about. If a guy blitzes, Captain Munderland's in nickel package, Shaq Thompson's in nickel package, blitzes off the right side, that's a gaping hole that another linebacker or somebody, if they're playing zone, mind you, this is a mainly man scheme coverage now, that's something somebody else has got to take over, and the cornerback's already going to be playing off to prevent the deep threat. So if that guy blitzes off the right and Matt Ryan knows the slant's going to be there, he's going to throw that every time. And if a secondary guy misses it, guess what? It's going for a big play. Yep. That's what happened against Tampa Bay with Godwin, rookie from Penn State. I think he may have had close to 100 yards that game just because of the slant pass. And you know what? That's one of the things. If it's hidden, it's great because your turnover is going to cover up those mistakes. But when it's not there, you get results like you saw today. And with the offense being short of playmakers, I mean, it's a tough thing to defend. I saw somebody else comment saying the good news is we're 11-5's a good record. We're going to the playoffs. You're absolutely right, but I mean, I'm just not confident going into the playoffs.
I'll put a positive spin on today's game. So what was the final score? 22-10.
Yes,
22-10. We turned the ball over on a short field 3 times.
Cam had 3 picks.
Well, the one pick was at the end. So
yeah,
two
of
those picks, and then we have a fumble, I believe? So short field. We gave up 3 field goals. We can't put everything on the defense. They didn't give up touchdowns. That's my positive spin on the game today. Was that on the short field, the only thing we did was give up field goals.
These guys are still going after Mike Shula.
Mike Shula has nothing to do with it. The offense turning over the ball and giving short field to the defense is the same thing that happened at the beginning of the year that put us in bad situations. They did it today, and the defense did all they could. Thomas Davis came out after suspension playing like all over the field, just killing people. They did it today and only gave up field goals. That's the offense's fault, and it's not the play calling. It's the execution of the plays that were being called. It's Cam Newton not reading the runs right. It's Cam Newton throwing balls behind, 10 feet too high, right to the secondary, throwing balls that are tipped that go for a pick. It's the pitches that are not caught. It's the one-handed pitch that McCaffrey, as a rookie, doesn't use ball security and tries to run with one arm, and the ball comes out. That was a pass. That was the issue today. It has nothing to do with Shula.
Kill yourself. That's what's been Carolina's problems in every loss this year. Is you're killing yourself with particularly with the turnovers. The one comment I was talking about, and it just disappeared on me. Holy crap! Where did it go? I think it was Gary, and he said something about Mike Shula's plays take too long to develop. You know what comes in handy there? Speedy receivers, and it's not every time the play doesn't develop. Receivers can't get separation. First of all, every play is there's not going to be somebody open. Yeah. And even if there was, it's not guaranteed that going through the progressions, your QB is going to have A, enough time to get it off, and B, that the guy's going to be open. I mean, there's just no way to. And right now, with the skill level that Carolina has, they just don't. I'm sorry, they just don't have the personnel to do that constantly. Now, granted, there is a strong chance, and I said this after the Tampa Bay game. At Tampa Bay, it looked like Carolina did not game plan at all for Tampa Bay. I don't know if I just had a feeling that maybe they were trying to hold some cards for offensive plays, and there's a strong chance they were doing that today. This team, towards the end, didn't look like a team that wanted to win the game. Now, my only argument about saying, maybe they were ditching this is, if they were ditching it, why the hell would they have their starters in chancing an injury? And I said going into this game, I don't think they should rest these guys unless we talked about maybe there's a chance they go up 24 points or something and then you pull them. But this wasn't that type of game. It stayed pretty much close right until the last field goal, and they kept them in for one last drive. And there's a chance that's the case, but I'm legitimately worried. I'm just worried about the offensive personnel as a whole at this point. And look, I hope moving forward, we're both Panther fans. I really hope Carolina can get it together offensively. And the run game is going to be the key. Today, Carolina as a whole, that's receiving. 87 yards total, and I can guarantee you that's their lowest since week 7, week 8, maybe. It might be their lowest of the season, actually.
Well, that's 59 from Cam.
Yeah. And that's ridiculous. And that's off scrambles where plays broke down and there was nobody open. Yeah. And this guy can't show it.
Yeah, I think he only, there was maybe 2 or 3 runs that were, planned runs, but the rest of them were scrambles, and he just took advantage of the defense being down the field. But I don't know. And maybe, the miscommunication in the backfield between him and Cap, late scratch, Jonathan Stewart goes out, handoffs were bad. I mean, it was just everywhere. There was nothing ran smooth today, and it was a bad week to have a bad game. It puts us in a tough spot, which we talk about how we don't want to. I mean, I didn't want to go to L.A., But now, seeing what we're putting on the field, I surely do not want to go to New Orleans.
Yeah, and look, the NFL is so week to week. That's one of the reasons I love this league, and it's year to year, and really it gets down to week to week. Yeah. A team can have a bad week, and it's like I was talking to our buddy Derek that was over here today, a good friend of ours. He was saying, look, well, this is a good time to have a bad week, and that's very true. I couldn't agree more. But when you talk about momentum going into the playoffs, 3 picks from your quarterback and everything else is not what you prefer to see, obviously. And yes, it's going to be very hard for New Orleans to beat Carolina 3 times, and I hope this wakes them up. And I'm defensively, I still feel like we have the talent defensively for it to wake up. But it's not the defensive talent that bothers me. It's more so the scheming at this point. Because like I said, the last 8 games they were allowing over 106 yards more per game of yards, and that's worrisome. Like, that's something you have to worry about. I saw our buddy Jaquan put up here. He said, "We're not the Browns. Quit joking." And we're not. That's
I will
that's
say
a strong hot take, guys. That's really strong.
I'm pissed, and I've been drinking all day. So, the 2 times we play the Saints, they ended a win streak. Now we have a little streak ended, and each week, and I don't have the numbers. I just know that our offense came out clicking after both those losses. So maybe this loss wakes us up. Maybe Clay, who we've been hating on, steps up, catches the ball, learns how to use his hands again. Secondary learns how to tackle. Secondary learns how to cover. And we come out and we put that whole football game together against the Saints for the 3rd time this season, and we end up winning.
Yep. Yeah, and look, I see a lot of y'all are buzzing with. For instance, I'll read this one. It looks like it's one, and I'm not trying to call y'all out. Y'all are commenting, so obviously but I'm just reading different opinions because I respect all opinions, and I can get some points to everybody. But Joseph Jones, I'm not worried. Sucks we had a bad game, but we go and beat the Saints next week. People will be praising Cam, so we just got to relax and wait. And it's a perfect example because I can guarantee you right now we will preview the Saints game next week, and I can guarantee you what my preview is going to be. Actually, I'm not going to do that yet because that would just ruin next week, and you probably already know by our takes tonight. But if that happens, I will be praising Cam. Cam is not unpraisable. Cam is not the problem with his team, in my opinion. He had a bad day today. Cam typically steps up in big games. Going to New Orleans next week, I completely believe he's going to lay everything on the line. There may be some trolls that jump in here with that Super Bowl fumble shit, so don't even bother with that. I ain't going to let that get to me. But, he normally steps up in these big games, and they may find a way to win, and that's great. I'm not saying they can't win. Cam has the ability with his talents to put a team on his back, and he's shown it time and time again, late in games, to do it. But I'm saying this NFC is a tough gauntlet, and it's not anything of Cam's fault. Injuries happen. If this team has Curtis Samuel or even Damiere Byrd at this point, I firmly believe this game would have been different. But I can definitely tell you, going into the playoffs, I would feel much more confident. You're talking about beating New Orleans having to beat us 3 times. If we have those guys, no, I don't. I think our chances are much better, and I would probably predict Carolina to win. And then even if you have to go to Minnesota, we've already beat them once. Granted, we had Damiere Byrd, whatever. Yeah. But we beat them pretty handedly, and I think we could possibly do that again. Philadelphia, obviously. They're beat up with Nick Foles. I think they're one and done anyway. Getting to the Super Bowl is potentially, it's a great chance if we have those guys. And that seems to be strong considering it's 1 or 2 guys on a team. But it opens up so many things, I feel like. And the defense has regressed is the other big issue with me. Like, the regression of the defense, I cannot stress enough, bothers me the most. Cam in the running game can find ways to win a game. If the defense has given up things like they've given up, what did you say they gave up today total yards? 377?
377.
Yep, look, 7 yards over their average the last 7 weeks, which is some of the most in the NFL.
And weeks ago, Wilkes said, hey, the tackling's on me. We're going to fix that.
That's not on you.
It is, but it hasn't been fixed. Like, I don't know.
But he can't fix that. The plays are there.
Yeah, but whatever they're doing in practice, it's no one is making a play. No one is making tackles. No one is wrapping up. throwing your shoulder and running into people with your head down, your eyes closed, and wishing doesn't work in the NFL. It's not working for us. They need the secondary. They need to come up and make a play. They're missing tackles. Luke today, he got clowned one time. Matt Ryan made him look ridiculous.
I saw somebody commenting about the front seven today, and look, Kawan Short's the lead. He had some great run stops today. Vernon Butler played a great game until he was injured. He had a couple of big stops. And look, I want to give some props to Darryl Worley today. Specifically in the run game, he was containing his edge and forcing Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman back inside and minimize what potentially could have been, 10-yard plays to 2 to 4 yard plays. And those are little things that, now, obviously, they didn't matter. It could have been worse, obviously, if they score on those plays or something goes awry. But those were big plays that you like to see from Darryl Worley. And I think that's big in his development. Charles Johnson came back today from a suspension, and, Rivera was all hyped up about it. But then he goes out and he has a penalty on him for offsides, neutral zone infraction, something like that, yada, yada. Wes Horton comes in on his limited and just cleans Matt Ryan's clock. Wes Horton should be in over Charles Johnson, in my opinion. Julius Peppers, you have to keep him limited if you want to keep him around longer, but obviously he's a better pass rusher. These are all things. Getting to the quarterback's a big thing. I just like the scheme better under Sean McDermott in the zone scheme. It was better for ball hawking, turnovers. I think our front four is good enough to get to the quarterback. But if you're sending blitzers and you're not getting to the quarterback all the time, it's going to leave those guys open. And against NFC caliber guys, it's going to cost you. But then you're going to have the games. Next week, we go to New Orleans. The blitz might be hitting home on Drew Brees, and he throws 3 interceptions or fumbles the ball twice, and Carolina's offense gets the ball in good field position, and it works. That's great. Then you go into the divisional round, and it doesn't work, and we have another game like we did today. That's kind of my issue, and that can be zone or man, obviously, but it's more apt to the man blitzing and the slot blitzing that they've been using lately is my issue. The O-line is fine. Cam needs to study the playbook. Garbage take, in my opinion. Cam doesn't take his shakedowns until the end of the games, and we're losing. They're just as full of hot takes as we are today. Yeah. On another note, who buys the Cats? I personally think it's gonna be one of the shareholders already, the Levines, the Belks, or the Smiths.
I think
one of those three. It's gonna be somebody that's already there. Don't listen. I would say anyway, don't listen to the outsiders like Diddy and all that crap. Don't buy into it. And we're really not going to know anything until after the season ends. You can about believe that.
If Diddy buys it, I'm buying me a big white fur coat.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. He's there. He can't get enough people together to have the money for the Panthers.
I think that the other owners will absorb, and somebody will have at least 30%. That's me.
Pedro, Falcons struggle themselves against us, yes, but we struggle like nobody else under Rivera and Cam in Atlanta. It's ridiculous how bad Carolina plays in Atlanta, and that's another bright side to look at this. Carolina hardly ever plays well at Atlanta, so they go to New Orleans next week. Maybe that changes things. I mean, that's also a point. Yes, Jerry, we are going to New Orleans next week. That was my pick for the worst case scenario. I'd rather see us go to L.A. I'd rather see us have the 2 seed in a playoff. Obviously, I think all of us would agree to that. But I'd rather see us go to L.A. and play a young and experienced team versus an experienced team like Drew Brees and, even Mark Ingram, Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn. They've all been there. Ted Ginn's played in a Super Bowl. Drew Brees has won a Super Bowl. I just rather go to L.A. It's not quite the home field advantage either. And another point, Trey Turner hopefully comes back next week.
Yeah.
That could help. Sila Tulu got beat like a drum by Grady Jarrett today. It was ridiculous. Jordan Moore, I feel like Cam just won't take what he's given. He tries to force things too much. That interception to Olsen should have never been thrown to Olsen. Funchess was wide open. I have to look at the film to really put a judge on that. Late in the games, I don't give any quarterback a lot of fault trying to make plays, because you've got to show some type of urgency. Troy Aikman was talking about when he threw that pick to – well, he didn't throw a pick. He threw the ball in the end zone to Olsen, and he was double covered. And Aikman was like, I'm not sure what Cam saw there. He takes something underneath. They had no timeouts with 16 seconds on the clock. You don't take a shot underneath and then waste that 16 seconds and lose the time. You take the shot in the end zone, Aikman. You're a Super Bowl winning quarterback. You should damn know this. I think that's crazy too. Any key injuries? Vernon Butler went down. Chris Manhurst, tight end, he went to the locker room. Both him and Butler did. That's the only ones I can really recall. Olsen was limping at one point in the game, but he seemed to finish okay. Didn't really see much outside of him being pissed off with the refs. I've never heard so much blind praise. D is playing bad, and Little O is one of the worst. Little O is one of the worst in the league, and is for sure the worst team in the playoffs.
Yeah.
No, at this point, with Wentz out, I think the Eagles are the worst team in the playoffs. First of all, it's because Wentz is out. But carry on.
Yeah, I'll just give a hot take.
Uh-oh.
Whoever
hot
wins,
take, Billy. That's what I said.
Whoever wins these wild card games, one of them goes to the Super Bowl. The 1 and 2, I don't believe in Case Keenum, and the Eagles are sitting there to be one and done in 2 weeks because they are awful. And
who?
The Eagles.
Oh, without Wentz.
Without Wentz, they're
no
awful.
No fault of their own.
So I think if we beat New Orleans, and whoever wins those wild card games, whoever wins that coming out is going to go to the Super Bowl.
Yep. And look, guys, since y'all are rolling in the comments right now, be sure to go ahead and we like to do a little roll call on our post game show. I almost forgot about it today. But go ahead and comment with where you're watching the game today, or where you're watching us from today, where you watched the game, whatever. And drop that in here. We watched the game from Greenville, North Carolina. It's about 3.5 hours east of Charlotte itself. And, we try to make a lot of trips. We didn't make it this week, not this week, but this year. But that's because we like to do this. We're enjoying interacting with y'all. And again, I said it in the preview, and I can't thank y'all enough. We've hit, we're over 2850 and likes as of now. I think I was looking earlier today, and last week we hit over 3,000 followers. I think we're close to 3,200 this week now, and I can't thank y'all enough. I started this thing back in June. It's really blossomed. Y'all enjoyed it a lot, and look, we have a blast doing it. It almost, obviously, like games like today, it gives us the place to vent. I feel like it gives y'all a place to vent, and we like to get up here and give our honest opinions of the Panthers. Not that y'all's aren't honest, but there are definitely fans out there, I feel like, that just completely find a way to keep a team's dream alive. But we like to try to keep things unbiased at times, but that's not always going to happen. It gets in my way. It's gotten in Billy's way, and we've told each other we're at fault for that. I think as fans, it's just natural.
Yeah, and I've been less of a homer than Tripp has for a long time.
Oh, boy.
I'll just say that. When we went to training camp, I said, can't wait to see Cam overthrow our tallest receiver, and that's when we had Benjamin.
Yeah, that same training camp, we went 15-1 into the Super Bowl. Yes. So this guy, MVP, and this guy, I was biased.
Benjamin wasn't playing.
Hey, that's fine. So how did he overthrow his tallest receiver? I'll wait.
In training camp.
I'll wait.
The first one. I was like, hey, look, there it was.
He had to get it out of the way.
Yeah, so, but...
Just like they had to get this game out of the way for the playoffs.
I'm not a huge homer. If it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Yeah. And look, outside this game, the last 8 weeks, look, this team is 7-2 in the last 9 weeks. So the duck that's quacking is a winning duck. But the injuries have mounted up over those weeks, particularly the one last week. Damiere Byrd is not a game-changing guy, but people, even like Bill Voth, who I have the utmost respect for, he's normally right a lot of the times, but he put something on Twitter this past week talking about Byrd being called dependable, which dependable might be strong, but kind of saying that somebody else could step up and fill that role. I strongly disagree with, because there's nobody else here without going to free agency or finding somebody from nowhere that can fill that speed role that Damiere Byrd or Curtis Samuel had. Kalen Clay ran a 4.46. And Damiere Byrd and Curtis Samuel are 4.2 guys. It's a difference when you get in the NFL. That speed is a difference for cornerbacks. So it's not the same thing. Heard Shula is out after this year. Is that true? No, Kathy Gutierrez. Sorry. No, I don't think Shula's gone after this year. I don't think he's really got a head coaching job. There was something about him going to Ole Miss. I think that's false too.
It was funny because today, talking about that, in today's game, they said, I'm really surprised Shula hasn't become a head coach. Well, Shula has had ups and downs of offensive coordinator. So, I don't know why that was brought up on the broadcast, but they talked about him. And then, of course, the only rumor is that Wilkes maybe goes to New York.
Yeah, and Like I said, I threw out a hot take on Twitter today. I said, I'm not opposed to it if they can get another solid, more zone type guy to come in and fill his role. Somebody, Josh Blanton, ECU, I went there. Hey, go Pirates, baby. Even though right now, fire Comfer. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's see. Too much praise for Shula. Look at the play calling last week down versus the Bucks, running the ball 3 straight times, wasting time like we were up by 20. Guys, we won the game. Our talent was better than the Bucks. Our talent going against Atlanta, I'm not today going into this game was not better in my opinion. And I thought the play calling was actually okay. Cam missed an open person one time on the sideline. He threw 3 picks today. Now, Artis Payne, again, we didn't help ourselves. McCaffrey dropped 2 passes. Artis Payne had the fumble. We didn't help ourselves, and we kill ourselves, and that's something to look at too. But it's beating a dead horse constantly this year, and going up against the NFC Gauntlet. I'm not saying Mike Shula is the greatest coordinator, but I'm saying Shula does a great job in scheming and getting guys open. And when the play doesn't work the way we hope it does, it's not always on Shula. There have been play calls where I say, Shula, what the hell was that? Some of the ones I saw today were not that. And when somebody gets on Shula because Cameron Artis Payne drops a toss 4 yards in the backfield is garbage. I'm sorry. It's not on Shula. I mean,
and we've been through this at the beginning of the year when Cam had all of his rust and everybody wanted to blame Shula, but he's not the one on the field. He's not the one throwing the ball. He's not the one catching the ball. It's execution, and that comes down to practice. That comes down to focusing on the field. That comes to making sure you secure the ball before you take off running. That's what our running backs had a problem with today. So no, I don't think that Shula is not at fault.
Yep. And again, sorry we weren't taking calls today, guys. It's kind of on the late games. It kind of puts us in a crunch. I had to get everything ready, whatnot. Didn't do that today. I'm glad y'all tuned in, and thank you for the discussions. Y'all killed it today, and obviously everybody's. I think we're all upset with what we saw today on the field. I really, honestly, I thought it would be a little bit worse offensively. I was really worried about the defense, personally. Said it in the preview. But what happened with the offense today was bad. And I just hope they get back to running the football next week because that's the edge. Cam led with 59 yards out of 80 today. And a lot of those were just on scrambles on broken down plays.
And we
and I felt like we got away from it early.
And
too.
Talking about running, we always say Cap needs the ball more. Maybe we saw today why Cap doesn't get the ball more. Maybe we saw why he's not taking over Jonathan Stewart's role.
I'm not going to say that because Jonathan Stewart's fumbled 3 times and terribly this year. And I will give any running back 1 fumble. Okay. I mean, because it's the NFL, but it was bad today. But if it ever happened again, obviously, now it's going to be something to watch because apparently, like I said, Voth was tweeting after game per Rivera that Stewart was in severe back injury this morning. So that could carry into next week depending on rehab, how it goes. So that's going to be something to watch. But look, guys, we're at like 50 minutes or so, closing in on an hour. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. I appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll go live Wednesday for our weekly game previewing the first playoff game against the Saints. We'll see what takes place, if any changes are made to the roster, depth chart, whatnot. I don't see a whole lot of it changing at this point. Hopefully we're healthy going into that game, and we'll see what's going on with the Saints as well. Again, this is Panther Source Post Game Show. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Trip Morgan.
Billy Harless.
Keep pounding.
Yeah,
see y'all next week.
See you next